This is a video by Richmond. Today we're working on a Dodge Neon. This happens to be a 2002 model. And this is the car that went through the water and broke the connecting rod. So we're going to get the cylinder head off and see what damage is done. Now, right now, where I'm at is all the parts are off as if I had taken off the timing belt. The timing belt is off and the battery is out, the coolant is drained. So if you want to get this far, check out my video on the Neon timing belt replacement, and it'll get you this far. First thing we need to do is to remove this exhaust pipe from the exhaust manifold right here. There are 4 nuts that secure it to the manifold, and then we have this bracket right here that you'll see underneath there that has I believe 2 15mm headed bolts and 1 10mm bolt that goes into the shield, and that bracket right there has to be removed. Next thing we're going to do is remove the main fuel line to the fuel rail right here. And what you can do is you can relieve the pressure if you want ahead of time, or put a rag over it like I'm going to do, and we want to squeeze the 2 little ears right here and pull the line off. Okay. Well, no fuel on this one, so we're all set. Next thing we need to do is to take the line off the PCV valve right here. Next we need to take the connector off of this sensor on the right front corner of the intake manifold. This little red lock has to come up like so, and then once you do that, you just push in this lock right here, and let's use our finger, and that will remove the connector. Right next to that sensor is a rubber line that goes to the brake booster, this one right here. So we're going to pop that right off there, because that's connected to the intake manifold. Next we need to remove this 10mm bolt is on the bracket that supports the lower part of the intake manifold. Next thing we need to do is to remove the electrical connector from the coil right here. Now take this red lock and push it that way, like that. Get a screwdriver right here in the back, and we want to press down on this little lock right here, and once we do, the connector will come off. Next thing we need to do is to disconnect this connector down at the AC compressor, and then over here, that connector right there, we need to remove that. These are all the wires that come down through the intake manifold here. That's why we have to take those off. And if you look down here, you can see the wires to the starter right here. There's another one with a red lock, and we have to remove that. And right over here we have a I believe it's a 13mm nut, and we need to remove that for the wire that comes down to the starter. And that should be about all the wires we have to remove. Next we need to take off these 5 8mm headed bolts that secure the intake manifold to the cylinder head. Next thing we need to do is to remove this 10mm bolt that secures the intake manifold to this bracket right here. Now all our bolts should be off the intake manifold, so we should be able to just pull it off the cylinder head. And what we'll do is we will move it over to the side here. Just like that, out of the way. Next we need to take the connector off of the cam sensor on the end of the cylinder head here. And we got this bracket for the pipe, 10mm headed bolt right here, and connected to this bracket. And we got a bolt over here that is part of this bracket we need to remove, and we have an electrical connector right here we have to remove. Next we need to remove this 10mm bolt that secures the coolant pipe to the cylinder head, and then over here we have a spring clamp that connects this pipe and hose to the cylinder head. So we need to remove that. This hose right here is not the easiest hose to get off, so I'm using a large pry bar and being very careful. Prying off this hose. There we go. Next we need to remove the 10mm headed bolts to secure the valve cover to the cylinder head. Now we get all our valve cover bolts out. Most likely the cover will stick a little bit, so we're going to take a wooden dowel. Alright, let's see if we can there we go. Okay. Next we need to remove the camshaft sprocket. Now the problem with this is that you can't get a wrench down on the cam lobes here to hold the cam without taking the rocker arm shafts off. So what I did is you can see that the motor is jacked up, so I could get an impact wrench in here on the side, and that enabled me to loosen the bolt so we can take the cam gear off. Next thing we need to do is to remove these two bottom bolts that secure the tensioner on. Get that out of the way so we can remove this plastic cover. You can see there's a bolt here on the cover, and we got one right here, and if we move up here we have two of them there, and that will take that cover out of the way. And we need to do that because it's connected to the cylinder head right here. Alright, now the only thing we got left to remove is the head bolts. There are 10 of them here. They're 15mm. So we're going to use a breaker bar and a 4-foot pipe. And we're going to start with the middle bolts. and we're not going to move them more than, say, a half a turn. And what we're going to do is all the middle ones and we're going to do that and work our way to the outer edges, just a half a turn at a time till we get all those bolts removed. Alright, our head bolts are all out, so all I have to do is pull the head off. I've got a little winch here, and I've added a hook to the front of the cylinder head. Okay, this happens from time to time. We forgot the coolant temp sensor, so we need to take that off right now. Alright, we got that coolant temp sensor right here disconnected. I'm surprised you guys didn't mention that. Rich, take off that coolant temp sensor. Oh yeah, and another thing, take off the oxygen sensor too. Why don't you guys mention that to me? Alright, we're going to take the oxygen sensor off. Alright, now I think we got everything off. I'm really slipping. Okay, there we are. We are off. That cylinder head is off the motor. Now we got a lot of inspecting to do. Now here's a look at the #1 combustion chamber, and everything looks pretty good. I don't see any gouges or bent valves. Alright, let's take a look at the piston. Now here's the top of #1 piston, and you can see that the valves made slight contact with the piston, but it's a weird contact. We have lines way over here, and then over here. It's almost like the piston was already disconnected from the connecting rod when it made contact. Well, the next thing to do would be to knock the piston out and look at the cylinder wall. Alright, we're going to knock that piston up and out. You guys tell me when it's out, okay? Yeah, I heard you. Thanks. She's out. Now, here's the most crucial part, the cylinder walls. You can see there's a little rust right there from the water. But that's no big deal. What we're looking for is deep gouges, a little rust right there. There is no gouges whatsoever. Jeez, considering everything, that's a miracle. So, I think maybe we can just hone that up and be back in business.